Okay, just 6:30 on the dot. Just gonna give a moment before I get started, actually get to the content this evening. But welcome again for another webinar Wednesday. Up on the screen, you should be seeing a slide for the Savvy Long-Term Care Planning, getting long-term care planning right, smart approaches for people at all stages. I guess another thing just to highlight, as it's the first webinar that we're running, actually since I guess coming out of the name Peak Path Retirement Advisors. So exciting milestone we had this year as a team was launching a new team name and identity of Peak Path Retirement Advisors. Same people doing the same things, still working through Sotera, everything's still all the same, but more of a team name, team identity, just to I guess encompass and hopefully clarify that we are one group and one team really working and serving our clients. So go through a little bit more about the team as I get started here as well. But again, thank you for joining. So as a team, our purpose, I always like to spend a few moments just highlighting who we are and what we do, but we're really working with you. Our goal is to learn what your intentions are, what are you trying to do, and help align actions with those intentions, essentially just to help you do and execute upon what it is that you are planning to do. We believe very much in living for today as much as planning for tomorrow. So it's not all about tomorrow and tomorrow's plans. It's about that balance of also being able to live for today as well, but also make sure that we're going to be prepared for the other things that are around the corner, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. That next part, again, life being unpredictable. It is, right? And it can be positive or negative things, but it's just, again, you don't pick a path through life or start walking. It's not just one smooth, everything goes exactly the direction you ever thought it was going to be. Sometimes when we think ahead, things can be a little blurred to exactly where we're going, or when we look back, it's, sometimes different winds and turns that we took in our life to get to where we are. So just know that life can be unpredictable and challenge even the best laid plans. Our goal is to help you with identifying short-term goals while also keeping track of those long-term plans as well. So keeping our eyes or I guess keeping the end in mind and making sure that what we're doing also with the short-term goals is supporting that end all be all that big picture mission that you have. And the approach that we take as we work to guide our clients confidently to and through retirement, as we like to say it, is to make sure that we are experts in and can support, educate, and keep ourselves educated in what we call the four key elements of retirement planning. Area we're focusing on tonight is long-term care planning that you see there. Also, Social Security, Medicare, tax planning. These are areas that come into heightened focus as you go from changing from your years of working to those other years of maybe working by choice a little bit if you want to, but also starting to distribute assets and new things come into your life. Again, eligible for Social Security they hadn't been before. Healthcare is not through my employer or through a private person anymore. It's like, okay, now it's the Medicare program. How's that work? Tax planning. It's not as simple as I get my paycheck, they withhold some taxes, submit some forms at the end of the year. It's okay, now you have a lot more impact on what dollars you're taking and where they're coming from on your taxes. So you want to have tax planning. And then long-term care being a big feature that we're going to talk about obviously this evening. Our team at Peak Path Retirement Advisors, there is a team, and that's because we do quite a lot. So to do it all, it couldn't be left up to just one individual. Things like, again, I could be here meeting and speaking with you tonight. Someone else could be meeting with another client, or we're meeting with clients. Someone else is executing and taking calls or getting things done that just need to be done. So we're efficient and make sure that we are able to also have the capacity to welcome others and being introductions, referrals, loved ones of clients that we have that we're able to continue to grow and help, and also trying to build in a way to ongoingly be able to support that to and through retirement. I believe strongly that the work we do is too important to leave it up to one individual just for the risk of knocking on wood, if God forbid anything were to happen, some unexpected exit, that there's a full team here to step right in, still support and keep things running for our clients. So there's a plan of perpetuity, if you would, that we can work with our clients and then even on to the next generation, the generation after that. That's what we're building and working for. So long-term care planning featured subject of tonight. I figured I'd share a little bit more as we get into the subject matter tonight, a little of my own personal story when it comes to, I guess, retirement planning and long-term care planning specifically. So I've shared, I think, pieces of this before and probably with clients that are on the call, but for those of you that are meeting me also for the first time this evening. But I have a pretty unique experience of having a father who passed away at a relatively young age, 54 back in 2012, and not able to reach those, retirement age. And I also have a mother who currently lives in a long-term care facility, for lack of better words, essentially in a nursing care. But we didn't start there. So I've had experience in a kind of a long-term care planning things we're going to talk about today that goes beyond just nursing home type of care that we're going to address. But my mother's situation was one where after losing my father, she really had a hard time with some acceptance of things, really went through some mentally challenging, difficult times where the path that we thought we were going to be on after losing dad, she wasn't able to work as long as we thought she'd be able to. We were able to get through some of the mental ups and downs and there and try to support, but she also wasn't really able to kind of live and be totally on her own. They were together their whole life since they were like 18 years old. So it became kind of a co-living situation with my brother at one point. Um, she wasn't able to, again, work. We got through kind of some of the mental things, and then it also just physically there was some deterioration there. So just wasn't able to fully live on her own. So it worked though that my brother and her lived together, and he was able to help with things that just regular help, not too much at the beginning. And this probably started back in, oh, I don't even know, 2016, 2017, maybe, some years back. But it was something that evolved over time. She would need a little more help and a little more assistance. And my brother, it was getting a little more stressful for him, just in the day to day, whether it's the need or just even the mental side of it, of kind of experience of seeing mom, and what her needs were, to the point where then eventually he also needed help where, okay, I would be, not that I wasn't there or coming by or visiting, but going by more regularly to actually help, not just like visit, but actually to help, and kind of moving things along. That progressed into eventually we needed some extra help. So we were able to bring in some extra help even at home, with my mom. And we were able to do what we could between us, extra help coming in, family help, all that as long as we could and what we did, and then into the point where eventually it just couldn't be done at home anymore safely, or what needed to be done to a something where we're actually living somewhere else, and then we go by regularly. And mom's still there and been there for probably about 3 years now, but she's also going to be 60. It's just turned 68 this year. So someone where it's a little earlier in life that some of these things set on. I just share this for some perspective as we're going through some of the subjects we're going to talk tonight about that are very challenging with long-term care planning, is that it's different for everyone. But also I think I do have some very, personal on top of client experiences with it. So I understand and I'm open to the conversations, but it when it comes to planning long-term care, is just, as I even just went through that personal situation, it's something that's hard to address because when you think ahead to what you're planning for, it's such an almost kind of unknown, unpredictable. You might have had a situation like I've had with family where I can, okay, if that's the route it goes, okay, how do we plan and prepare for that? But there's others that sometimes are thrust into a more urgent type of need or situation, or others that might never actually need any type of care, whether it's a great living, long, healthy life, or someone sadly like my father that passed away, at a younger age without a long-term care need. So it's hard because it's just such a an uncertain thing to be planning for. So it's very confusing. But when we think of that, again, there's other reasons why people might struggle with the planning of it. It could be just the emotional toll of it, the emotional and financial risks and cost of family, as we're highlighting on the screen, just even some of those things to be kind of the risk of not planning for it. Um, you could be putting family or certain people into emotional decisions or situations that might not be what you ideally would have wanted for them. Having to make choices about care and options if you hadn't had those conversations. The sandwich generation is one that right now exists a lot where they're still supporting maybe children, working on getting their kids up and growing and taken care of, while at the same time are supporting their parents. And they're kind of in that sandwich, right? Which that's can be a lot to take on for anyone. It could lead to some financial stress, loss of wages or missed time from work. You got to take time off, take care of someone, or emergencies and things pop up. Challenges that you might have, even if you're up and willing for the day to day and doing what it takes. It might also be having a weight on you that could be generational impacts, right? Unintended consequences that you're really looking at. So other headline kind of at the bottom is thinking of in a married or couple situation, if you're both aging, and you're thinking of aging parents taking care of one another, depending on what those care needs, you can think of how challenging it might be for someone, an 85-year-old woman maybe to be taking care of an 87-year-old man, depending what those needs are at that point in time. So there's a lot to it to consider. And I think a common thing that we find, and I don't think it's abnormal or anything like that, is just, whatever happens, I just don't want to be in a nursing home. If at all possible, I just want to make sure I'm not in a nursing home. And I think that's another thing with long-term care planning is as soon as we say that, I feel many of us do jump right to that vision of the nursing home, of living in a nursing home alone, having care, and it just kind of jumping right to that extreme where I already mentioned and shared the story with my mother where it was more of a phased journey. And it's really not just nursing home care that we're talking about, right? It's not that. It's about designing an entire plan and things to take care of health and personal needs later in life that might arrive. And what those long-term care needs, and these are things that come up that you might have heard of as these ADLs or these activities of daily living, essentially things that all of us need to do that we take for granted on a daily basis that can become challenging over time, based on maybe just aging, maybe health issues that pop up along the way through life. So bathing, dressing, eating, transferring up and down from one place to another, toileting, incontinence. But now the type of care and help you might need with those things, it might be maybe hands-on help, or maybe you just need someone there just for support, just in case you have some trouble getting in or out of the shower or something like that. You just need someone there just in case you need help. So there's differences there, right? In just care of, okay, maybe it's just in case and standby care, or maybe it's no, hands-on, I need help actively with each of these things. So it's again such a variety. And another thing that comes into this is it's a hard thing to picture ourselves. I think any of us trying to visualize, a negative view or potentially being in a care situation. And that's where this slide's really hitting with, how many of us when we're out there think that we're going to actually end up in or needing a long-term care support? And the polls show and surveys show about 8%. So, a little less than 1 in 10 versus the likelihood of someone actually needing some level of long-term care being at like 70% for those over age 65 or people turning 65 that are going to need some level of long-term care. If you think about it, we're all living longer and longer, and the longer we live, the more likely we are to have a point in life where we might need some assistance, where we might need some help. Again, 70% does not mean 70% of people are going to be living in nursing homes. It just means 70% of people might need some level of long-term care. And getting into that, so these long-term care settings, where is long-term care taking place? Essentially, where are we living at this point where we're getting help? So it could be still at home, right? It could be that we're still living at home. Families coming by or helping out or bringing in certain services. Then there's, all ranges and tiers of those things. There's community-based areas, places that you can go to as well with limited help, supportive services, independent living situations with care, assisted living, and nursing home. And these are pretty much kind of stacked almost in a way of kind of a progressive order of how it goes. If you need some level of help, that you might be progressing through these independent to assisted living to a nursing level of care needs. But talking about at home care first, so maybe it is. Maybe you're at home and maybe it starts with family or friends, coming by, me and my brother, right? Helping out, doing a couple extra things, making sure, meals and prepped and stuff like that, cleaning up a bit. I know that was common with I remember with my grandparents, growing up, all our parents, aunts, uncles, everyone would come by and, kind of take turns doing different things in the homes. So some of the family dynamics have changed over the years. Not everyone had, 4, 5, 6 kids nowadays that they have that are able to kind of divide. Sometimes families are more spread as well and not all living in the same geographic area. So things you just have to like think and consider if those are available or not. But there's other supportive services out there like Meals on Wheels, those meal deliveries. I know we had those things going on with my mom where there was, deliveries happening for certain meals throughout the day that were at least there and available, and we could help get those prepared or warmed up and things like that for her. Home health aides. So again, someone maybe come by to help with a couple things a few times a week that you might be able to have. There might be, equipment that might be needed that you're able to get into the home. There's doctors and things like that you can schedule to come home in. There's typically a case manager, even for at-home care, that's coordinating and working with all these services and helping you. There is services that you can actually just bring into into the home if that's a good fit for you. And then there's also things like community-based care, adult gay care, but essentially somewhere, okay, maybe you're living at home or have family that's helping or supporting, but maybe they're out, they have other things they need to do during the day or working, and there's somewhere else where it's, mostly activity-based things you might be able to do, but there's some eyes and ears and things around just to make sure everyone's okay and has the assistance they need throughout the day when the other members that were assisting maybe aren't available. Can be a great social network as well. A lot of these things are just things to try to keep an open mind to if the need is there, something that you're open to. And the other thing with this is also for family and what it might be helping. So if they have a community-based service care, it can also give at-home care individuals, they call it respite, but essentially a break or a rest or a break time, right? Which sometimes can allow that break or rest to have more quality time when you are together, because it can be a wearing and a strain. So the independent living, this could be something that's become more and more popular. These continuing care retirement communities where sometimes there's a place where you're living fully independently, you might not need any level of help or assistance, but hey, right around the corner, next door over, if you do need some help, there's help available and things that you can progressively move up in within the community already. So, meaning all of a sudden you do need some level of help. Okay, there's some assistance that's there. Okay, I do need a higher level of like assisted living. Okay, there's a next step that you can move up to. So they start off with more they call like independent living plus, which is you're living independently, but maybe you need someone to come by or take care of, set up your medications or things you need to take each and every day. Again, with a variety of things, it can be a lot to try to juggle, and make sure you're on track with everything. So it could just be minimal, maybe personal care. Same thing, shower or bathing. You need someone just kind of there on site, like I was saying before. Maybe it's not hands-on, but just assistance, right? To be there for that just in case. And like I mentioned, the Medicare medication management. So they've gained in popularity. There's all different, communities out there and different ways to get into them or the cost of them. Assisted living is it's not necessarily a full like nursing type of care, but living somewhere where there is regular daily assistance for the things that you need to do that can be challenging throughout the day. You might be good once you're up and about and taking care of things. There's typically a residential type of setting with it, comforts of home and community, others and peers that are there, social um, environment. But there's also again a level of care that is there to help with personal needs and things that you might not be able to do as easily on your own anymore. And again, we're just kind of tiering things up. So again, like I said, I'm just trying to really get across that this is not just talking about nursing home care when we bring up long-term care. There's a variety of services out there, and for some people they start at one place or the other. Some can be starting and just kind of progressing through each of the kind of tiers. Some might have a more severe need earlier on. Some might only need assisted living, and that's it. They might never need any type of nursing care at that point, as that's one of the ones where you really need more of a 24/7, maybe the regular more medical type of treatment and care available. As we get into the planning, another thing that becomes very challenging for people is then to think of the cost. So we have some numbers on the screen, which is some data, source data, National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and the number on the left. We actually talk about this more in our Medicare webinars as well, but that's the cost of medical care and retirement for a couple. $300,000 as a median expectation. So that's not long-term care. That's just, paying premiums, out-of-pocket costs, married couple, living throughout their retirement. Then in the middle, we're showing the actual cost of long-term care per year for one individual, which can be a wide number, as you see, in 51 to $105,000. Can change geographically depending where you live in the country would have a significant thing on there. And also, again, assisted living, limited versus, say, full nursing care. The type of living situation. Are you living in a private room? Are you in a shared room? Right? There's going to be different costs to that. And then on the right, talking about maybe a New York City area, more high cost area, you can see the numbers can go even higher from there. But it's clearly can be something that can be a very large financial stress or strain. So we have to plan for it. And this as well is something that we have to address is okay, but what about Medicare or Medicaid? if these things are serious and things that I need, aren't they there? Aren't they there to take care of and pay for this? So there are services out there, Medicare and Medicaid, and we're going to talk about each a bit. But it's not a plan that most people want to rely on to have Medicare or Medicaid pay for long-term care. We'll talk about Medicare that really doesn't pay for long-term care at all. But Medicaid, again, it might not be something that everyone wants to rely on. And also, are you eligible anyway? So, thinking of this and some of the misconceptions about paying for long-term care and long-term care cost, it can vary on services, location, so much. But a thing to know is again, Medicare is not long-term care insurance. Medicare does not pay for long-term care. It might pay for a short-term skilled nursing care, less than 90 days. So maybe it could be a short-term care, where, it could be up to 90 days. But it's not custodial care, not ongoing long-term daily living assistance, right? That's not what Medicare is. That's more for the medical insurance throughout retirement that we're talking about with Medicare. So Medicaid covers long-term care, but eligible low-income adults. So there's certain rules to have Medicaid pay and just things that you need to be aware of and surprises maybe with Medicaid if you're not aware of them. But you have to use up your assets in order to have Medicaid pay. So essentially, Medicaid is something that is there as a safeguard, support and give the care to individuals in need, but there needs to be a true need. So if you have funds or assets, monies in the bank, you're expected to be paying for your own care until there is no longer assets. So Medicaid right now is a $2,000 that you could have in assets at one point in time to be applying and qualify for Medicaid. So a little bit of money for some of those extra costs and things like that, maybe that you're able to pay. They also limit, um, the amount of income that could be coming in that you can have. Otherwise, again, the income above that is going to go towards paying for the care. And this is for um, the individual that's actually applying for Medicaid. So in a married situation, the spouse if there's a spouse, could have other assets. Like they could have some limited assets, and that amount can vary state by state, but they could still have assets that are in their name. They're not subject to that same $2,000 limit that the spouse that is actually applying for Medicaid to pay for their care or assistance would have. So again, we got to understand that it's a need-based program. So look back period. Another thing a lot of people have heard about, it comes up often of in planning is trying to think, okay, how do we kind of plan for this or avoid this in a way? But there's a look back period. If you're heading along the way and thinking you need care, they have some things there to make sure you don't quickly get rid of or move monies to somewhere or someone else as you're progressing to need care. There's a look back period of right now 5 years. So a 5 year look back period that they're going to go through with your assets that they can to potentially disqualify you for Medicaid. So if you found out that, oh boy, I need some care, I don't really want to pay this. I have a lot of assets in my name. You can't just transfer those assets to someone else's name and say now Medicaid's going to pay for it. That transfer would have had to happen 5 years prior or greater than 5 years prior. So there's this look back period as well. So it's things again you have to be planning for ahead of time. But also the challenge with that is the planning for it. What if you do not end up in a care or long-term care situation? It's not as if you can give all your assets away and then still be able to live a long, healthy life and plan to take care of yourself financially. So there's some challenges there in the execution of a plan. This one, I mean, no room at the inn, forced to move. I really, that's more. What they're talking about is once Medicaid comes in and they're the ones paying, maybe the facility or the place where you're living, assisted living, the nursing home, if it's nursing care that you're receiving, if Medicaid starts paying, so only certain facilities are Medicaid eligible. So you might have to move. You might not be able to stay in that same place when you switch on from personal paying to Medicaid. You might have to switch rooms. So maybe you're in a private room to now you have to have a shared room for what, again, Medicaid is going to be paying, right? They're not going to be paying, at the ultra high end, best, places available with private rooms and all the, ancillary things that are out there because they're within even the assisted living and nursing homes. There's many of us could probably imagine, just like going to a hotel or anywhere else you go to stay. There's a wide array of options there from the more budget friendly options to the more expensive, higher tiered ones. Additional risks with Medicare and Medicaid, assuming they'll pay. We just have to know there's always changes that are happening. You might be forced to pay some monies out of pocket. We have an aging population, so there are things being done where some states are taking action. Also, with some Medicare, or excuse me, long-term care plans that are being put into place in states. I know Washington State did one not too long ago. That it's still very early on, but it's more almost kind of like a tax in a way that people are paying into a long-term care type of benefit by, I guess we'll call it almost by force, without a choice that they have to pay into it in the state to have that option for a benefit in the future. It's more similar to a like a Social Security or pension plan where it's something that you're required to pay into. So the states making changes with those as well. As we think about it and we come into the planning and think about, okay, if it's costly, it may or may not happen. It might be different. Some things that we use for some of these just in case things are insurance, like life insurance, for example. What if I passed away? I don't know if I am, but if something happened, I did. Gotta make sure there's some money there. So something else, there is long-term care insurance, but there's also been such bad publicity or press. I think it's getting better now, and I'll go through the why. But previously, if you had parents that might have had it, there's some bad experiences. I've also had many clients that have had some very good experiences with their parents with long-term care plans. But essentially, exploring more if there is this even worth exploring as an option. I've heard they're not a good deal, but let's talk more about that as well. And like I said, a lot of it's just kind of tied to historic problems and things that at this point, there's been some evolutions to change and address some of the issues that gave such a poor experience with some of the early on long-term care policies because they've been around for a while. I mean, introduced in the late 1960s. Um, they expanded in the 80s, meaning just more options and flexibility with them. But as the care options expanded, the demand for a long-term care insurance increased. It was seen as a great option. A lot of insurance companies, okay, this is great, but now the cost of care also then started to increase so much more. More and more people were requiring or needing an aging population. So premiums all of a sudden started going up on people. So it's just a bad, bad experience, right? Where policies were being canceled, lots of litigation with it. Just again, what they thought they were getting at the very beginning didn't end up working out exactly how they thought. So it's just very bad experiences. And those are some of the challenges, some of these early on policies. But then things got reformed. And now there is actually rules and things in place to how any type of long-term care insurance, what guarantees they have to provide. Things that they do all up front, like underwriting, like life insurance, once they commit and make the agreement, right? The insurance company's liable to make those payments. They've changed that they don't all have hospitalization requirements or skilled nursing requirements in order for you to qualify for accessing care benefits. The coverage actually includes dementia, Alzheimer's, that they'll actually be covered under these things. So there's just been a lot of changes. The policies can't be canceled just on someone. If the person chooses to not pay for it, they could cancel it. There's regulations on premium increases. So essentially, due to the challenges with it, reforms came in, regulations came in, as we have in many areas of our financial system, and some controls to put in there to try to protect the, lack of better words, like consumer, to make sure that they are, able to look at this as a true helpful resource. But there still are some of those legacy policies out there, still causing some problems. But again, for those, there are some that are still very good. It's just there used to be a lot more companies in the mix, and now there's just a more limited amount. But it's something if you do have something already in place that you've had for a while, it's always worth a review just to make sure it isn't something that should be changed or updated or make sure it works how you expected it to. Talking about this all again, it seemed daunting. I'm talking large numbers, potential cost, options, and unpredictability. So it's easy to start thinking, okay, is this something I can even do? Planning for long-term care. Where, and how do I even start? But you have to, you have to think. And there's been updates and I guess new approaches to addressing this. Just that there's a lot of different strategies now that we put in place. That long-term care planning, it shouldn't be just a okay Medicare Medicaid plan. It shouldn't be just a hey long-term care insurance is what I got to get to cover this. That might be part of something, and each could be part of something, but it's a combination of solutions and strategies, and even just conversations. Sometimes challenging conversations with family members or loved ones or challenging mental exercise to put yourself through of okay, if this or what if this, what would I be open to doing and having more of a plan and acceptance of if life goes this way, I need these things. What am I open to and willing to explore? So you can just again have more realistic kind of expectations for yourself if life goes a certain way, because it can be unpredictable. But these new approaches, it's well, there's improved long-term care insurance, like I was talking about. Other products and investments have some benefits now that they build into them. Kind of like, buying a car nowadays versus buying a car 20 years ago. Certain things now, the bells and whistles that come attached to them based on the needs and things people expect nowadays are just very, very different. So now certain life insurance and annuities, they come with built-in long-term care benefits available. Others, you can add on little extras, like again, the car, you can pay a little more, add this extra feature for additional coverage or feature there, and then other financial strategies that we'll cover. But long-term care insurance, there's again the new consumer protections that are built into there. Benefits could be limited to just long-term care, but the benefits vary by policy to policy. They have protections now for those rising of cost. There's also, excuse me, for flipping screens, there's a variety now of options here too. There's also some things called hybrid insurance policies that can be both long-term care and life insurance policies in one wrapper. So one wrapper meaning one policy, one premium, or one policy that you own where if you were to pass away, there's a death benefit that would go to loved ones or family or charity or again, wherever it is that you dictate as a beneficiary and can update. But there's also a long-term care benefit. So if it's something that life goes that way, you need some help or care, which again, it's kind of the way you want it to go in a way, is that you live a long life, and at some point you need some help and assistance. Maybe there's some money there that can help you along that way. So I like those a lot because I like the flexibility of use. But again, they're still just part of a solution. These life insurance and annuities with long-term care benefits. So it could be rather than that hybrid one I was talking about, there's other life insurance policies. They just have some access to some more limited amount of money in a care situation. Or same thing with an annuity. They might have an option where you're able to withdraw so much more money on a regular basis if you qualify for certain long-term care benefits, which that when I say qualify, typically what it is if you start needing help, they look at those daily living activities. And if you struggle or need help with two of those six ones, that's when they say, okay, this person needs some help. And then you are eligible to start accessing some of these benefits if you own certain like policies. Essentially, you're able to start claiming and getting some of the benefits out of them. Just not able to do two of those six daily living activities on your own. But other things you got to think, I guess inside the box and outside the box as well. No stone unturned is how we like to look at it. So, your full retirement plan, income strategy, assets, everything should be on the table for thinking of, again, what if? If this is where life goes, there's some cost that we need to pay for care regularly. Are we prepared for it? Where's that money going to come from? Maybe there's property that you own, primary or otherwise, and there's equity there. Okay, how would we access the equity? What are our options with that? How could that maybe be used? Maybe there's existing life insurance policies. There's different ways you can access, either cash value in policies, care benefits that could be there, or even these settlement programs that are out there. Roth IRAs or IRAs, HSAs, these health savings accounts that can be used for paying for a care cost. So those equities in your home, it could be, HELOCs, like a lot of us are familiar with, home equity loans, right? Where you can borrow against your home and use some of that money to help with care. Reverse mortgages, another area that has some, I don't know, somewhat of a bad rep, where it's one of those things that a lot of people, as soon as they hear it, say, no, no, that's not for me. But being a CFP and someone who has to, study and research all these different solutions that are out there, everything that's out there, there's a right fit for. So I don't close the door on anything. I look at everything individually and think of what's the best case and what's going to help this individual. And there are definitely cases out there that reverse mortgages do make sense. So reverse mortgages, HELOCs, but ways to again essentially untap the monies that are in your home to help you, which can be sometimes a challenging thing to do, right? It's not money in the bank that you're writing a check from. Existing life insurance, as I mentioned, maybe there's a settlement. There's plans out there where that life insurance benefit you might be able to get some type of settlement amount, some monies now versus the death benefit. Acceleration of benefits. So when I was saying before, some of these built-in features now that are just kind of built into these products, sometimes those are now these accelerated benefits where if there's a care situation, you might be able to access a certain amount of the benefits without it being having to pass away. A true like death benefit that you can actually accelerate and get some of those life benefits while living for certain long-term care needs. Maybe a pre-tax savings or after-tax savings in those traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. We talked about this a bit in our tax planning webinar, but if you are in a care situation, out-of-pocket costs, monies that you're paying, if those start getting over a certain amount of your adjusted gross income, they become tax deductible. So sometimes making withdrawals even from pre-tax accounts like traditional IRAs, because if you have large medical costs, you might have large medical deductions. Maybe it's a good time to even be taking money from pre-tax accounts because you have some large tax write-offs to offset those things. So again, just what assets are going to be available for what? Roth IRAs, though, a nice thing about those is the tax-free access. So if you needed to access larger sums of money over time because of increased care and needs, well, okay, here's another way I can access large sums of money, but not have the tax bill, tax repercussion that comes from if you don't have those deductions like I was talking about before. So we generally like to say just more options are better than less. If having traditional Roth IRAs, insurance policies, all in the mix as you go into your retirement, okay, great. Now we have a variety of choices and options for kind of whatever life brings ahead of us. We're going to have more variety of choices and options to handle or yeah, take care of what we need to. And hopefully those are all good things, but also, plan for the best, but protect for the worst as well. These health savings accounts, HSAs, they've gained in popularity over the years. They're more and more prevalent, but those HSA accounts can be carried into retirement. The monies in there can be used as qualified distributions, meaning tax-free for healthcare costs. They can be used tax-free for long-term care premiums. So it's another source of monies that you can have available for this next stage of life or essentially for care needs in the future. Now, the option always is there for self-funding long-term care costs. And when I say self-funding, it's self-insuring. Okay, do I have enough savings, enough investments? Can I afford if those expenses and things go up or something comes my way? Can I just afford to pay it? And I'm not going to do anything else, but I'm just I'll have the money and I'm able to pay it. Well, okay, so we went through some of those larger numbers. So again, you can check and see, well, can I afford to? And maybe you can. And that still is then okay. Well, should I? Are there other options? There are more efficient things, in the business of having, monies work for us, tax planning, just again, leverage of dollars to make them stretch and last longer. Even if you can afford to self-fund, it might still be well, why? Why should you self-fund versus other options that might be available for planning purposes? And again, it just depends on where you are in life, what your needs are, to what maybe the solutions might be that would make sense for you. Factors you got to consider, and all of us do, at the point of planning is okay, at what stage of life are we in? Are we married? Are we single? Thinking of what care situations or help or support might be there. But as I said earlier, just because you're married or there's a spouse there, it doesn't mean the other one's going to be able to provide the care that's needed, if and when it is. Just overall health expectations, location, and where you live and what's accessible and not accessible to you. Other services that might be available. Maybe you're in the military, there might be VA services and things like that that might be available. Family history, um, for care, if there is a level of care or just health history. I would also say with families, okay, what's their support there and the family dynamics, if there's family help and assistance, your asset levels, your retirement financial strategies, how's everything look with then factoring in long-term care, legacy and estate plans. Just you have to consider everything. The full plan is another piece of the planning pie why we had those four key elements long-term care planning. We're really considering everything. So the stuff that makes it very challenging is again that this is it's not a certainty that it's going to occur, though we went through and saw some statistics that for it's more likely than not that there's going to be some level of need, right? 70% of us needing some level of care at some point in the future. It can be a challenge mentally to put yourself in the kind of what if scenarios. What if I do? Who's going to provide the care? Do we have a situation? Are they aware that they're the ones that are expected to provide the care? Where do you want the care? What's your ideal? Where would I love and prefer to be and what are the wishes? But also, what are you open to if that becomes too much? In the beginning, too, of strain of the ones that might be helping or assisting, sometimes trying to make decisions. Was mom or dad what would they have wanted or what are they open to? Would they, again, if we had conversations that, yeah, I'd love to stay home as long as I can, but I understand if at a point I need some extra help, that, we might have to do something else. Having some of those conversations ahead of time can put a lot of things more at ease, especially if the person is not able to really speak to what their needs or wants are anymore at that time that they're evolving. And obviously, financially, just where and how are we going to be paying for care? Where's that going to come from? Is it personal assets, others, income sources that might be coming in? Like we went through those list of different options that you might be able to tap into. Is Medicaid a proper plan for you or not? Is it a necessary fallback plan that you have? Because the other numbers just aren't going to make it work. So it's different for everyone. The things you got to keep in mind, everyone is different. Just like when we do any type of financial planning and retirement planning for individuals, we get asked a lot for trying to compare the people to Bob, Sue, Jane down the road or anyone else. And it's so personal to know what your needs, wants, wishes are and where you stand. Where can you receive care? And so that are you set up at your home that you could have care there? Your plan doesn't have to cover all possible cost, right? There might be assistance that's coming from different areas. Doesn't have to cover all possible costs, but generally having some type of plan is better than having no plan. The ability to cover some cost versus covering no cost, right? So it might be just some assistance there, but it's confusing. And it can be something that's generally left unaddressed because it can be a daunting and confusing subject to go through, but it's definitely important to think of long-term care and just thinking ahead in life and how and where it might evolve and how you would manage those changes in each of the areas that we talked about, just personally, living situation wise, financially, everything. It's just something that can be a very large challenge to your financial security. So keys that we're talking about today, again, don't just think of this as living in a nursing home. There's a wide variety of services that are available, and needs are also wide. You might just need a little help at home that might be just some family that's there and able to support. But what if that evolves? What if there's a time where you need a little bit more? It's just trying to be able to think and plan for those what ifs. Just knowing again, the fallback of Medicare, Medicaid is not a plan. It's more of a fallback at that point in time. And you got to understand those pitfalls that we went through as well, and that you may or may not be eligible. Long-term care insurance. I have questions about it. What options are out there? Please ask. Again, historic policies, very different from what's allowed and enforced and allowed to be issued or anything drawn up today. If you have anything that's existing, you should always do review of policies, life insurance, care policies, liability policies. Everything should be reviewed every so often to make sure it's up to today's, standards. If there's any enhancements or updates that need to be done. I just know that there's more and more approaches and things evolving to help address long-term care planning as there's a greater and greater need for it. So the flexibility and the range of options just continues to grow. So it is always an evolving. No plan is ever a set it and forget it. It's okay, monitor, adjust, but we have to start with some type of foundational plan. So you have to have a plan in order for you to feel safe in your retirement strategy. This is a piece of it. If we live long enough and healthy, we still might have a point in time where we might need some help. Or what if, again, life throws a curveball to ourselves or someone else in our lives? Are we prepared for that curveball and are we going to be able to handle it? Or how much of a disruption will it be to our expectations that we had set? And is there a way that we could mitigate that or eliminate it even today by planning? I say coming for a long-term care planning, really always, from these nights and these events. It's set to educate you, give us some good information, high levels, so then we can have more detailed one-off conversations. Share this with others in your life as well. These events now are all recorded, all our webinars, so you'll get emails and follow-up that point you to the recordings that all land on our new website, peakpathra.com. We have a one page that we're open to sharing if anyone wants it, but some of these different long-term care planning options. So the life insurance, the home equity line, the reverse mortgage, just some things to consider and some quick facts and guides on one of these type of table charts that we can provide if you ask. So please always just drop a note or send an email if you'd like something like this. So thank you everyone for coming this evening. Hopefully it was informative. Please do follow up with conversations, have them yourselves, spend some time exploring, and make sure to share them with us as well. Any thoughts, concerns, or those what ifs. Our job is to work with you to challenge the plans and make sure we can do anything we can to address any concerns you have so that you can navigate the future with confidence. So again, thank you very much. Hope you have a great night, and we'll see you again in the future. Thank you.